Previously on Geezerology 2.0, we are going to have a look at that is a Bill choice, Madam Satan, about some bad girls doing some bad things or something. So how risque could a Hollywood film get before the Hays Code came along and ruined the party? That's what Bill was curious about when he added Madam Satan to our pre-code watch list. Hello everybody, this is Scott, welcoming you back to Geezerology 2.0. Madam Satan was a 1930 offering from legendary director Cecil B. DeMille. It was his second sound film in the early days of talkies, after he cranked out more than 50 silent films from 1914 to 1928. Most of those are now in the public domain if you're interested in a treasure hunt. None of us at Geezerology 2.0 has seen Madam Satan as I record this. Bill found it in the 2025 book Pre-Code Essentials, which he and Bob reviewed earlier this month. Bill said something about an Eyes Wide Shut style masquerade ball and a woman seeking sexual adventure to win back her philandering husband, or something like that. I don't know anything about this movie other than what I've read on Wikipedia. That entry makes Madam Satan seem a little odd and rather interesting. The three of us will talk about all that when we reconvene after watching this movie. Madam Satan is in the public domain, so I was able to upload it onto our channel. Head over to our homepage at Geezerology 2 to have a look. And please subscribe while you're there. Hit like buttons, sprinkle some comments. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, I'm off to watch Madam Satan. I'm expecting some strange stuff. We'll be back in a flash to tell you what we found. Okay, Bill, you threw this movie at us, and I'll get you started with one word: audacious.
Well, that's charitable. So I realized I made a grave error, which was I picked this movie because I expected something to be, really insane, and it was only half crazy. The mistake I made was I picked a movie that was directed by Cecil B. DeMille, and what I realized after watching it and then doing further investigation, because I was familiar with DeMille, as we all are, of the big colossal, cinemascope stuff of the 40s, 50s, 60s, that stuff. But what he was actually better known as was a director in the silent period. And there was a movie that he did in 1920 called Why Change Your Wife with Gloria Swanson. It's kind of essentially the same plot line where the wife loses her husband essentially to somebody who is younger and sassier, and she has to go over the top to get him back. And so that's what the plot line here is in Madam Satan. But the problem is, DeMille is dealing with the sound issue, and he's got a cast that's made up of, essentially stage folks, and they, combined with his still figuring out the technology of sound and placement, combined with a script that is weirdly weird. I mean, it is, you cannot tell what direction this thing is going in. It starts like a drawing room comedy where the husband and wife are bickering because he's not just implying, he nearly says, I am not getting enough sex here. And she's like, well, I don't understand what your problem is because I'm running this whole place and, you'll get what you get. And the argument really boils over when he comes home with Roland Young and they're drunk. And of course, nobody can be drunk in Prohibition era, right? I mean, no one's supposed to be drinking. But of course, in all of these movies, everybody's drinking. And not only are they drinking, they are blotto. And so they're either quipping or they're arguing or yelling, and it's just crazy. But that movie is only part of what this whole film's about. It's the most trying because it really plays to the weaknesses of the people involved. Kay Johnson, who plays the wife, is a Broadway actress. And it's amazing to me that she is only 26 years old. She looks like she's 56. I mean, she's just, and the way she comes across is kind of, a wooden, to say the least. And Reginald Denny, who's her husband, is kind of the similar, cut from the same cloth. Roland Young, who is very well known in, later movies because of especially Topper and others, is, kind of the comic gentleman, and he kind of cuts through this very well, but everybody else is a little screwed up. And then the movie moves through these other phases where the husband leaves the wife learns from her maid, her singing maid. Everybody needs a singing maid, right? That she's really got to up her sex game. And to make a long story short, she ends up finding her husband at his mistress's apartment, and Trixie is her name, and Trixie is real sassy, Lillian Roth. It's all mistaken identity kinds of issues, but she in the end confronts Trixie. Trixie says, "You're never going to get Bob back because you don't know how to do the things that I can do." And Angela, who's the Kay Johnson character, says, "Well, you know what? I'm going to out sex you because that's the way I'm going to do it." He's going to be so sick of that he won't even be able to figure it out. That's the end of the normal movie, and from there on out it just gets crazy because we got 7 years before the Hindenburg blows up, we got a gigantic Busby Berkeley nightmare scenario happening on a Zeppelin, docked across the river from New York City with a cast of, I don't know, 150 people, half of them, guys dressed up in masquerade costumes, the other half scantily clad women who are going to be auctioned off to the highest bidder. And that's where, the Kay Johnson character appears as Madam Satan. And I'm just going to leave it there because I could not believe that all of this was happening under the aegis of MGM and Cecil B. DeMille. This is just nutty. Nuttiest film I've seen in quite some time, and that includes Gabriel Over the White House, which is also crazy, but in a different way. Actually, that was sane in compared to this.
That was one of the craziest films I've ever seen. It's like like at every point we go along, I'm sitting there going, holy crap, where do we go from here? This is crazy. And then 5 minutes later, I'm going, this is crazier. This is nuts. It starts out as like a Rock Hudson, Doris Day, and this is, 1930 before any of this stuff, became part of the popular culture. But it starts out like this Doris Day, Rock Hudson little bedroom farce. And then it goes into, just this crazy, deviant, nutty, eyes wide shut sort of, masquerade swingers party, and then at some point it becomes a Poseidon adventure, on a Zeppelin, and then the last act, that's the second, and then the last act is like, people just falling from the sky and landing and all kind of. It ends like this is what I thought of as the ending was going on. I said, this is like the ending of Blazing Saddles. You get to the end, they don't know what to do, so they just all of a sudden start bursting into all these other films going on the soundstage, and it's like it's just nuts and insane. And man, by the end of it, I was holding my breath. I was going, what the hell was that? I've never seen anything like this. Crazy. And the whole thing, what I thought it was going to be was, just this really bawdy sort of sexually oriented thing. I mean, that was just like a kind of a small piece of it. And they hit that really hard in the second act, in the middle piece of it. But then it just goes off in all these crazy different directions. I'm going, man, oh man, it's nuts. Jump in here, Bobby.
Oh, wow. Okay, so what we get here is three movies in one, none of which are worth the price of admission, in my opinion. And we have the bedroom farce at the beginning where they seem to repeat the same joke over and over again ad nauseum. Then we get this Art Deco musical aboard a Zeppelin, and then a full-fledged disaster movie. It's overly long, 120 minutes. This thing needed to be edited down. The acting, for the most part, is very wooden. It's like they were still trying to figure out how to act in a movie. And despite the Art Deco musical part is elaborately staged, but very rudimentary cinematography. And there are lots of times when you would just have the camera pointed at a set and actors would walk in and out of it like they were on a Broadway stage. Quite a bit of musical in here, and I don't know if the songs were integral to the plot because I couldn't understand anything they were singing. I don't know if it was limitation.
Well, that's because of sound problem. Yeah,
that weird singing style they had back then, where everything was like falsetto and vibrato. So it's just a weird mishmash. This was an incredibly expensive movie that flopped, and the whole musical extravaganza part on the Zeppelin was filmed in color, but they released it as black and white because I guess they couldn't afford to do the color after filming it that way.
This is 1930. How could they? Yeah. And I couldn't figure out how the heck did that work. I guess we'll never know because we can't see it because that color print was
lost or destroyed or what have you. I had no idea they even had color technology back then. And I don't know if it was true color or maybe just, I don't know.
Well, I saw that it was two color. It didn't say what two color. I imagine red was probably one of the colors. I guess the other one would probably maybe blue or yellow.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was probably more highlights than it was actually color, right?
Correct, probably.
But anyway, go ahead.
So anyway, this dive we've done into the pre-code films, up to this point, I really enjoyed them. And, for the historical value and lots of other things. And as much as a history buff as I am and a fan of old cinema, boy, this is one I can't recommend. It was just weird and convoluted and all these different elements and styles all kind of thrown together. And at the end of the movie, I'm sitting there going, why did you even care to keep this guy? I mean, he's a jerk, but you're madly in love with him and it's a farce, and so the guy's married to his wife and she can fool him simply by putting on half of a face mask.
Yeah, the old Clark Kent effect, right?
Yes, exactly. Sure, I won't recognize you from anything down below the eye mask, and I'm not going to recognize your voice, even though you're doing the world's worst French accent ever. So yeah, it just it looks like somebody gave Cecil B. DeMille way too much money to play with.
Well, you can't, and again, this is 1930. Keep in mind the time period is. I mean, you can't give him credit for just, for attempting all this stuff.
Okay, yeah, I guess
we can go.
Yeah, okay. Look, I can concede, I guess, that he took some bold experiments here. But
that was a big, bold experiment, and I had a completely different reaction than you did to it. Yeah, I thought it was great. I love this thing, man.
One of the funny things was that while Bob could not recognize his wife because she was wearing a mask, one of the other guys could recognize Trixie, who was also wearing a costume, by her appendectomy scar.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That was a great line. He said,
It was.
he said he performed he did the surgery on her or something like that, and then after that thing was over, then somebody walked up to him and said, "Oh, you're a surgeon?" He said, "No, I'm a carpenter or something." It's like, what the hell? But come on, man. I mean, this thing all of a sudden it devolves, and all these people are falling from the sky and landing in Turkish baths, and one guy ended up in a restaurant. I'm going. This is truly throwing everything that you have up against the wall. And just seeing what sticks, and I loved it. Oh my God! It's like, what is next? It definitely kept me on my toes. And by the end of this movie, I was breathless. That was fun. I thought that was great. And come on, I mean, any movie that has a line where a woman says, "I don't want your husband, I just need a parachute." How can you not love that?
And also I have to say, I never knew until this day that parachutes came out of tubes.
Yeah, I didn't know how that worked, but I didn't know how that. There's a whole lot of things that are going on. I didn't know how that would work. But it's like I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden, it just out of nowhere just turns into like an Irwin Allen disaster movie. I'm going, oh, this is like one of the first disaster movies ever. In the last act.
Because of seeing this movie and having to then learn a little bit of the background of some of the people involved, there were three things that I found out that are kind of intriguing. One was that Kay Johnson married subsequently John Cromwell, who was kind of a well-regarded director. And their son is James Cromwell, who was the farmer in Babe, and was the crooked cop, police lieutenant in L.A. Confidential. So I thought that was pretty interesting. The second thing was that Reginald Denny, who was the husband, was a pilot. He's English. He was in the RAF. And during the 30s and then into the 40s, he formed a company that made radio-controlled planes that then were used by the Army Air Force as target drones for fighter and gunnery practice. And during the production of those drones, a certain woman named Norma Jean Mortensen was photographed by an Army photographer because she was attractive, making assembling the drones. And of course, Norma Jean was Marilyn Monroe. And because of the photo, somebody recommended that she get a screen test, and that's the start of her career. So Reginald Denny, this is like one of those Kevin Bacon things,
Yeah.
How many degrees removed?
Who was the woman who played Trixie? Man, I thought she was.
So Trixie, and that is the third piece. That's Lillian Roth, and she had a very good career, but she was really driven by a stage mother, and she became an alcoholic, and she kind of lost her place in Hollywood. She wrote her biography or autobiography, which then became the baseline for a movie called. I forget what the name of it is. It's a kind of a well-known one with Susan Hayward in it. That Someday I'll Cry, something like that. It's a very depressing movie, but it was well regarded. And she kind of came. She had a renaissance when she was a guest on To Tell the Truth. So that's how impactful those kind of shows were in those days. And she was, kind of flogging her autobiography, and that became the basis for the Susan Hayward movie. So yes, she was quite talented. Like Bob says, she's singing like a cross between Ethel Merman and Al Jolson, and that is not a style that is held up very well. But she's got a lot of sass and
He's
kind
got
of
a lot of
sexy.
legs too.
Yeah.
She's got a lot of legs, and you see them like almost all the time. There's a way to get those front and center. So
I mean, was
I
it was
was
it
hoping
was
for a lot of that, and I did get that. A lot of those costumes at the when the women are parading around. I think Adrian, the noted designer, he had a big budget and he blew it all on those costumes. Because there's some crazy ass stuff out there. It is really remarkable. Madam Satan's is like one of the most conservative almost, and that one's got it's like almost a bodysuit. So she's like sideless, backless. She's got a whole thing all the way up to her, her thigh, and it's quite exotic to say the least. But she does dampen my ardor when she does start to talk into that French accent, which has got to be like one of the
Madame
worst
Satan.
I've ever heard. But yeah,
Yeah, well, and one of the oddest things, or like I say, it started out as as sort of that bedroom farce thing, and then all of a sudden you get a cut, and the next thing you see that Zeppelin with that tower climbing up in that Zeppelin, and then you see these hundreds of people just climbing these stairs and doing a dance number, and and chorus line and everything as they're climbing the stairs into the Zeppelin and go, what the hell is this? And which is really weird. And then they get on that Zeppelin, and then they had that big giant set piece musical dance number in there, which is really hard to see because the print isn't really good, at least the one that you see on YouTube, which is, I think, is the one that we all watched. And it might be the best one out there. It was really hard to see all that because you couldn't see any detail, but there were all these people in costumes and dancing around and singing, and that was a little tough. That was a little tough.
I do give props to the middle part, the whole Art Deco dance music extravaganza on the Zeppelin. That was kind of cool. I wish
I wish you could have seen that better, but it's just impossible.
Yeah, and I mean that was kind of impressive. I wish I could have understood the dialogue and the singing better.
Yeah.
I do want to also point out, we've already mentioned the money that went into this thing. I read somewhere that like one of the costumes worn by one of the women in the musical part of it, in today's dollars, cost like $100,000 just for that one, costume. So that part was kind of impressive.
Okay, Bill, what do you rate it?
It's really a 2.5 movie, but it is so crazy, and I will never see something like that again. I have to give it a 3, just because it out of sheer respect for its insanity.
Bob?
Oh man. I understand what Bill just said, and I respect him for saying it. I can't quite go that high, though. I'm gonna 2.5.
Okay, well, I'm gonna bring that average up. I'm at 4.5 on this.
Whoa!
I'm at 4.5 on this thing.
All right.
Just, I mean, honest to God, have you ever seen a movie like this? And certainly in 1930, put yourself in 1930 America. When talkies are just a new thing, and this is a whole new thing, and you go in and sit down in a theater, and this comes on, and all that stuff happens. I mean, what kind of what kind of emotions does this thing put you through?
Well, apparently not positive ones back in the day, because from what I read, this thing.
Well, it was a bomb. It was a bomb, but that doesn't mean anything to me.
No.
I'm watching a movie. Yep. I'm at 4.5, and I almost went to 5. I'm going, nah. It's there's some problems there. 4.5.
One of the things that I didn't, given how much time was spent in the front, I think it's almost like 50 minutes of the movie. which I agree, Bob. That could have been cut by 20 minutes easily without losing anything. You can set up the thing that the husband and wife disagree about, the physicality natures that they each have. What I found interesting, and it never really was explored, is that when Bob learns that Madam Satan is actually his wife, he is not excited about this, even though he's been pursuing her to the exclusion of his infatuation with Trixie. He's actually revolted, more or less. So, the question is, to me, I mean, and I can understand that could be a real, result of how he feels as a character, but we don't understand why that is the case, really. I mean, it's like he's more embarrassed, I think, that he found his wife attractive because of the way she was behaving, and he couldn't figure that out ahead of time. And it would have been nice to know exactly what he was getting upset about. Was he upset because he doesn't believe that his wife should be that way? In which case, his argument about what she was at the beginning doesn't hold up. Or is it because, he's been deceived and he doesn't like being deceived, which also is understandable. But I never thought about it until now that I'm thinking about the whole thing in its totality, because I got interrupted by the, Bob landing in the reservoir. And, you thought the poor guy was going to die because he gave up his parachute, but he managed to end up just spraining his elbow or something.
Everybody survived. There were no casualties. At least that's what the newspaper headline said.
I took his anger after learning that his wife was in disguise as that he was mad because he got deceived, which is ironic considering he thinks it was okay to go cheat on his wife and have sex with a gold digger.
Right.
Yeah, I took it as sort of a male dominance thing. It's like that, it's like he knows what kinds of girls he likes, and he knows what kind of girls that he wants to take home to mom.
And which leads me to
and never the twain shall meet. Right.
This movie was written by a trio of female scriptwriters, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, really?
I know that male-female relationships were a lot different in 1930, but still, I thought it was interesting that women wrote this movie.
So how would this have survived if this were to be re-released, say, in 1935? Would that have even been possible?
It would have been, I don't think so, because they would have had to tone down a lot
there's nothing you could have kept, right?
Well, I guess, I mean, that the adulterous relationship is resolved in the favor of marriage, I guess would be okay, but they would have to tone it down considerably, like Bob was saying. I don't know how you kind of start to pull that apart without kind of taking everything with it.
Yeah, I guess you could have taken a third act and just reworked it into just a straight old disaster movie.
Probably would have had to, rather than make it an actual physical adulterous relationship, maybe make it like he's infatuated with another woman but hasn't pulled the trigger yet. And they obviously would have had to really tone down the costumes. And as it was, like the Madam Satan costume originally didn't have the body stocking part with it. So I guess it actually was showing a lot of skin, but they had to put that flesh-colored stuff in there. Trixie's costume was, I thought, a whole lot more revealing than Madam Satan's.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say a lot of that would have to be, plus the alcohol consumption, probably would have been killed.
Okay, there you have it, Madame Satan. Next on our watch list is coming up. Stay tuned, and you'll see how we're going to wrap up our month of pre-code movies. Okay, gang, stay tuned. See you then. Thanks. Next week on Geezerology 2.0, we're going to wrap up our month of pre-code movies, and we're going to spin the wheel and see which one of these three movies that we're going to wrap up this series with. Call Her Savage by Clara Bow. Who picked that one?
I did.
Bill. Okay. Bill, that's his second clean sweep in a row. Okay, join us next week for that one, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Did you enjoy this video? If so, please smash that subscribe button and drop a comment to let us know what you think about the movie we just discussed. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on Geezerology 2.0.